science. Let's talk about the actual medical treatment of hearing loss. So thank you for putting this together, Jared. And I guess we're going to watch a video now.
Yeah, are you coming to us live from an airplane? Did you make it home last night from
I got in around
event?
Yeah, I got in around 2 a.m. and then had to wake up at 5:30 to get my kids to the bus. So
dad by day and symposium presenter by night. Well, I know that Dr. Vinipol appreciated you going out there. I know you have another one in Green Bay area. And I think, like I said, that's totally fantastic. And I think it jives with this little video that I want to share with everybody. It looks like you have a fan, Keith, maybe probably more than one, but at least one fan there in the chat from Jeanette, talking about your previous event, CDP. We will mention the CDP certification and another tinnitus certification you have coming up. So just
Jeanette, thank you. Hey, by the way, for all you out there, because I see people are really rolling in now, the chat feature is live. It's available. Do me a favor, that little blue box, chat to everyone, not just host and panelists. I always feel like I'm being selfish if you only text to us. So text to everyone, try to create, an even greater sense of community. But Jeanette, thank you for being on that CDP course. And yeah, I think you're going to get a kick out of today and you're going to learn even more. So, all right, Jared, I'm going to shut my camera off. Go ahead and let's roll the film.
Just make sure you can see the screen for me, Keith. Can you see that that screen?
Yes, I can.
My screen. All right, everybody. I'm gonna share this quick video. We'll dive into what does Apple hearing tests and hearing aids mean for you in your practice, but I just want to share this real quick.
I believe we all have one goal: to provide the highest level of hearing healthcare to every patient. Yet we know that only 20% of people with hearing loss actually seek our help. We need to come together. Our team of experts will help you to grow your market share, help you to grow your patient database, to help you cultivate and grow your relationships with your patients. We want people to look at you, look at your practice, look at your providers as the experts in your community.
We've done events like this before in the community, but nothing with a turnout like this. And I think part of it had to do a lot with the material that was presented. And I think it was an awesome event that we did.
I think it's the best we've had so far of these types of events that we have done.
This symposium allows you to get to another level. It allows you to raise your profile and allow people to say, I'm not buying a product, I am buying a better life.
Reaching out and getting people to group together that have the same type of concerns and issues, it's huge. It's huge for people to gather and feel like they're not alone.
The reason we've been able to bring in hundreds of people to a single symposium is because people know we're providing education. People know that with our credentials that we understand the patient population.
This symposium was well attended. We had over 120 people in attendance.
We have the ability to generate leads in every form. So whether it be direct mail, social media, website, symposiums, we provide a full package to allow you to spend more time with your patients.
Some of the people came from our database. We specifically targeted people whose hearing aids were over 3 years old. We also marketed directly using newspaper and other database mailers to the public at large. So there was a good mix of our own patients plus new patients that we haven't met yet. So I thought it was a good mix.
We will come in. We will design the room for you. We will make sure we have all the equipment ready. We will make sure that we have people filling that symposium coming excited, engaged, and when they leave, they will make an appointment.
I thought Dr. Darrow's presentation was very well received by the audience, and he was really able to connect with them.
Having hearing loss is like driving 60 miles an hour in second gear. Our patients tell us that they are exhausted at the end of the day because, unlike when they were younger, they now have to work to hear.
Without a hearing aid, I would be at a loss, and my whole professional career would be gone. But with it, it has made my life better. I'm smiling.
I think
the best thing that came from it all, I doubt very much if anybody walked out of here without feeling more comfortable with the whole thing. And I think it's great. I think you guys should do this wherever you can.
At Aud Experts, we care about every patient. We care about every practice, and we care about every provider. Our all-in-one solution will help your practice grow and will help you provide the highest level of hearing healthcare and allow you to develop stronger, deeper relationships with every patient.
Absolutely. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Keith, I had to share that video that was from multiple years ago. It's fun to go back and watch what your message was. I think that was 8 years ago. Go back and watch that message, how much stronger it's become, how much more transformational it's become, and how much more impactful and the community has grown. So absolutely wanted to frame today's conversation right there. Wanted to be able to share with everybody when we start talking about Apple hearing aids and Apple hearing tests, that there is a huge line in the sand and there is a difference between that and the overall medical treatment of hearing loss.
So allow me to sort of, and I want to just to piggyback off this. Look, if you watched my little video that I posted the other day, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. What Apple has done is amazing for hearing healthcare. Do not look at this any other way. Do not be fearful. Do not be worried. This is, for us, I really feel like it's the day we landed on the moon, right? Because there's so much awareness. There's so many eyes and ears now that are going to be talking more about hearing loss, right? People were scared about the announcement of OTC. It brought more awareness to hearing loss and hearing aids. Now with Apple and their deep pockets and their push to sell more of their widget to older adults, this just means that more people are going to be talking about it. All ships rise. And so you have to be part of that abundance mindset. That's what we do at Aud Experts. That's what our community breeds, is a mindset of abundance. And this is going to be our way to differentiate, truly differentiate ourselves. Because let's be honest, the people at home, they still don't really know what's over the counter. They don't know what's a real hearing aid over the counter. They don't know what Whisper is, Bose is, this, that. They have no idea. They still see it as all the same. But Apple is clearly something different. And they are clearly easy enough for us to differentiate from. So I'm very excited.
Keith, you mentioned Bose, you mentioned Whisper, Lexi. I mean, look, I've only been around for 14 years in private practice, and there hasn't been a day, a week, a month that I haven't seen something in a magazine, something online, something at Walmart for sale, even before the FDA changed its stance, and even before Audiology begged the government to get involved in between their patients and their outcomes. So tell me how you view Apple differently than all of those others that have come and gone.
Well, because Apple just, I mean, look at their reach. They are in every nook and cranny and corner of the globe, right? They are trying to, in addition to not just sell widgets, Apple has always been focused on selling from a perspective of why, right? If you go back and you watch Simon Sinek's TED Talk about why, he even uses Apple as his example of Apple sells with their proposition of why. And so here, it's almost like they're running out of whys. Here, they're sort of transitioning to our new why is health and longevity and just becoming a part of your everyday life. It's not just about listening to music. It's not just about talking and chatting with or texting with your friends anymore. This is about your life. That's why you need their watch. That's why you need their AirPods. That's why you need their iPad, et cetera, et cetera. So their why is very powerful. And so let's ride their coattails. Let's join the conversation about hearing healthcare is preventative medicine. Hearing healthcare can reduce significant risk factors to help you actively age. Let's join the conversation and embrace it. But at the end of the day, we're genuinely different. We're the only hearing healthcare field that has evidence-based outcomes. Apple, they're just making stuff louder for a couple hours a day. That's it. It's not we're comparing apples and screwdrivers.
You're gonna jump through all my slides, and you're gonna jump through the end of the presentation. I absolutely love your.
I'm sorry.
I love your passion, Keith. Absolutely love it. For those on the call, you got to scan the bottom QR code. You have to be at the website audiologyascending.com. You have to join us this October, and you're going to see Keith's passion on stage for 2 days. You're going to see how we are different. And Keith, for those that don't know, if you go to drkeithdarrow.com, right, your logo, your personal brand that I made for you when I helped you do this thing, this movement that you're doing, is innovation and education. And I think what's absolutely fantastic is your abundance mindset and your outlook on treating more patients, about growing the size of the market, about growing market share, about helping businesses, private practices reach more people, because you have innovation in education and Apple has innovation in technology. And when you bring great technology together again with great education and medical science and neuroscience, you will be the differentiated specialist, provider, audiologist in your market. You will be what we've been coaching now at AudExperts for years, the trusted authority in your marketplace. So you can totally see the line in the sand between people who get excited and people who get fearful. And so I would love for you to chat in. Why are you here? Are you afraid? Are you happy? Are you excited? Do you want help in private practice, reaching more people, changing more lives, and growing your purpose? And we're going to do that. We can't do that all on one webinar. We can't do that all today in 45 minutes together, but we are bringing people together. Yeah, Keith.
And Jared, sometimes I get too excited and I lose sight of the actual question. And I'm remembering now, you asked me, what is different now? What's different about Apple? Here's what's different, because you mentioned the long line of Bose, Whisper, and all the other ones. Here's the differentiator. Apple will not fail, period. Apple's not going anywhere. Apple AirPod version 3, version 4, in 10 years, it'll be version 18. Like, it's not going to fail. So you might as well embrace it and educate yourself on what are the differences. Be part of the conversation. Don't run from it. Do a public symposium like we just did yesterday. And I talked all about over-the-counter DIY hearing aids, right? You have to realize this. If you take a day off of work, okay, sit home and just watch TV, right? Because this is actually a great educational experience. If you watch daytime TV, every other commercial is about a widget. Every other commercial, they got Joe Namath, they got everybody now talking about hearing aids. So let's ride this wave, educate, take the whole over-the-counter market head on and say, it's great that they have that option. It's great that there's transactional hearing healthcare out there, but we're not part of it. We're part of transformational hearing healthcare. We're helping to improve your quality of life, help you live longer, reduce your risk of dementia, et cetera, et cetera. We ain't just selling you a widget. And, again, I don't want to insult Apple because I've got lots of Apple products, but Apple's AirPods are going to help you hear better about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day.
Yeah, and I think, Keith, you have to understand Apple, right? So if you look at the percentage of AirPod usage, I think right now, last data I saw, 94% of AirPod users are under the age of 35 or 40 years old, right? So what Apple's why is to reach the 40+ segment of the market, right? Apple's no dummy. They know where they have growth potential. They know where they have blue ocean strategy. They know where they have an opportunity. Insurance companies have been doing this ever since Audiology begged for insurance to cover hearing aids. Insurance companies went out and created third-party managed care programs. They created benefit programs for widgets, and it backfired, right? And so as Apple's reaching out, what they're doing is using the same playbook from marketing, saying, look, if you use our cell phone and our iPad, we'll sell you this additional widget that connects via Bluetooth that can also address your hearing. We'll sell you this additional widget called a watch that will monitor your ECG and your falls risk, right? So Apple's no dummy. What they're doing is bolting on services and products that create more value for their main product. Their sales come from iPhones, right? And so what they're doing is using AirPods as a loss leader. They're not trying to transform medical healthcare. They're not trying to get into research and science. They're not even trying to get into patient care. What they're doing is bolting a product and a service on. So if 94% of their sales on AirPods are coming from people 40 and younger, they're just trying to get an older demographic. Just like your insurance companies, when United Healthcare says we're going to give you free hearing aids, or we're going to give you a hearing aid benefit for you, if you join this program, we'll give you this. It's because they know their main what. They know what they sell that makes money. They know what they do that drives their business. And that's what October is all about for me, Keith, is making sure everybody on this call comes to our 2-day Audiology Ascending event, hears from great practice owners, sees what you've been doing since that video I played to start today, and how we have transformed private practice, how we have grown through the private practice plateaus, how we have grown from $438,000 a year in revenue to $438,000 a week in revenue, right? You start seeing what is actually happening and what is winning and what is losing. And that's why I want everybody to join us and to join this community, because together, I truly, truly believe private practice will be healthy for many years to come. There's another 50 million baby boomers coming into the market in the next 10 years. There's not enough hearing healthcare providers to service, treat, love, nurture, and have transformational healthcare. You have to be one of those practices. And we have a community now with 205 locations around this world that is doing that. And so I want you to be in that room. You have 2 pictures here. Keith, last October, you did this great event about tinnitus and cognitive processing disorders in Harvard. That's in the top left corner of the screen. And then you have the mastermind picture there where our small coaching group got together. And you can be in the room with some great people with some great ideas and know how we're winning.
Yeah, and these are just, right, these are the ways that we rally around each other and we say, okay, look, I think today we should all send a thank you email to Apple and just say, thanks for doing this. Thanks for bringing attention to this. And for me, it's about coming together and realizing, how do we overcome the widget speak? How do we change the way that we present ourselves and how we are different, right? Now, Jared, if you're okay with it, I want to basically, and I see Laura just wrote in here something. Yeah. Well, there you go. Perfect introduction, Laura. Let's talk about the science behind Apple's AirPods. Let's not just get lost in the fact of, oh, Apple put out a new hearing aid. Let's actually know the science. So for one thing, right, and I've already hinted at it, right? If you want to know some of the differences, the points of differentiation, number one, it's critical that you treat hearing loss all day, every day. With Apple, you might get a couple of hours. You might get a little boost. You might get a little taste of what clarity sounds like, right? So we know that we tell every one of our patients, you can't effectively treat hearing loss and tinnitus for 2 hours a day. So right there, Apple product doesn't come close to anything we do. Let's talk about some of the other science that's out there. Signal to noise ratio, right? One of the big advances with hearing aid technology in just the last few years has been the ability to decipher speech from background noise. Now, what's the big advantage is that with new premium technology, you can do that in 360 degrees. Apple AirPods are only able to give you a tiny boost of speech coming from directly in front of you, right? That's like hearing aids from 30 years ago when they first started to come out with beam forming. Like, that is not the way the world works. You can't hear only the people that are standing directly in front of you. So there's another big issue. Now here's one that I'm actually pretty upset about and I'm genuinely worried about. Again, you may not know this, you might not geek out on these things like myself and Jared do, but the average premium hearing aid has a latency. Now, what is latency? The amount of time it takes for the sound out in the environment to basically get through the hearing aid and up into your brain. The average premium hearing technology takes about 5 milliseconds, okay? Now, let's put that into perspective. The AirPod hearing aid feature has a latency of 120 milliseconds. That can be potentially devastating, because if you remember your hearing science class, anything over 30 to 40 milliseconds, it actually sounds like an echo. So trying to use AirPods in church and cafeteria and noisy restaurants, all it's going to create is this massive confusion and cognitive overload in our patients' brains, right? So for those who were there, it was just a couple of years ago at the neuroscience bootcamp, we actually learned from Dr. Hannah Glick, yes, the same Dr. Glick from all the Glick and Sharma work, we already learned that improperly treating hearing loss can be just as bad as no treatment at all, right? So, Jared, could I grab the screen for a quick second here just to sort of show a little bit of science?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Appreciate you. Let me jump in here. Let me see if I can find. Give me 1 second, everyone. All right. Here you go. So just give me 2 minutes here, right? Because I want to be able to arm you with this science so that you understand the mindset, you understand the science behind properly treating hearing loss, right? So we know that in the brain, with hearing loss, the brain reorganizes itself, right? It's called cross-modal reorganization. What exactly does that mean, right? I'll make it really simple. What Dr. Glick and Sharma showed us a few years ago, Dr. Campbell was part of it also. When you lose your hearing, the visual part of your brain takes over the hearing part of your brain. Okay, that's called cross-modal reorganization. Now, fast forward, right? Fast forward, what we know is that if you properly treat hearing loss with proper hearing technology, proper real ear verification, with proper specs like latency, distortion, et cetera, that the brain reorganizes itself, meaning that the visual part that took over the hearing, it actually goes back and it enhances the temporal areas that are involved with hearing, and vision goes back and does its own job, right? Now, here's what I want to get to. Here's the study that we were presented with at the recent neuroscience boot camp, is that patients with poor fit, patients who don't have the right hearing technology, that don't have the right latency, real ear verification, distortion, all the specs that we look at in the test box and the real ear, right? Basically, the brain does not reorganize itself. It is not capable of saying, you know what, I'm going to use vision to hear, because it basically rejects when the brain is improperly fit with hearing technology. So again, Apple might be great at just making things a little bit louder for, an hour or two in a very quiet setting. But in real world, the only evidence-based data we have is from properly fit prescription hearing technology. There's yet to ever be a single study saying that an over-the-counter widget, which is where Apple hearing aids fall, they fall in the category of over-the-counter amplifying widgets, that it's ever been proven to help anybody to cortically stimulate properly, reduce the risk of dementia, etc. So we have science on our side. That's why I'm so excited about these advances.
Keith, I appreciate that. I'm sure everybody here appreciates the science. And to get back to Laura's question, there's a reason why this webinar is going to be much more about odd experts and the community that we have, because we have a neuroscientist, we have the scientific data, we have neuroscience boot camp each year, we have the Preventing Decline Summit each year. These events are showing the value proposition of what we can do to help you in your private practice and to help protect and propel private practice moving forward. 1 hour webinar, one time on Apple isn't going to be the solution to changing your mindset, changing your culture, changing your marketing, changing your knowledge of science. It is a taste, it is an intro. So I appreciate that, Seth, but I also need to talk for everybody here that isn't in the community or watches this recording about what do they do next, right? Because I think that the great example right there is Apple's not holding a webinar for hearing healthcare providers. Apple's not holding a patient education symposium helping people understand. And if I let this webinar in the next 30 minutes become about Apple and widgets, I've lost the battle. I've lost the value proposition. I've lost the medical treatment of hearing loss to talk about Apple. And Apple is not the medical treatment of hearing loss, Keith. So when you talk about this, and I have your books up here, I have your patient education, and you have some upcoming events that I want to share with everybody, in your mind, clearly as day, can you help us understand the difference between do-it-yourself technology and the medical treatment of hearing loss and the ongoing care of a progressive degenerative disorder?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head right there, right? Hearing loss is the #1 sensory disorder on the planet. It is a chronic neurologic condition. What more is there to say other than it requires medical intervention, right? It doesn't require just some over-the-counter widget. It doesn't require just making things louder for a couple hours a day. Transactional retail audiology has never really helped anybody. What we're talking about here, the community we're building, is about transformational hearing healthcare, right? Look, Apple AirPods cost a few $100. The price is only going to go up. Let's be honest, you can get hearing aids all over the internet, all over Amazon, big box stores for $1,000, maybe $2,000. Pretty damn good hearing aids too. But at the end of the day, widgets are cheap. We are not cheap. The reason there's such a price tag is because we're the ones who actually provide value. There's never been a medical study that said hearing aids help X, Y, or Z, right? There's never been a grab a widget off of a shelf. It's always been we provide the value, we provide the help. That's where all the money goes into. That's where the investment of time goes into when it comes to treating hearing loss. And that's where you can help your patients with living longer, living more active lives, not just, wearing a cool looking widget.
So Keith, while you have it, and we'll give everybody, the huge takeaway, what are the 5? We've watched a lot of film. We've watched a lot of people talk about Apple with patients. We've talked a lot of people talk about Bose with patients. A lot of people talk about every do-it-yourself widget. What are the 5 medical benefits that everybody could leave this webinar today and go Google research studies? Or for those that are on the call, go to training.audexperts.com. Go to the research module, and Keith has already shared every bit of science he's ever researched, or at least the top most important studies, I think, Keith. But what are the 5 medical benefits that everybody needs to start focusing on rather than on Apple, Bose? Phonak just had a big launch. Everybody was excited for a week. So how do you
I don't want
to.
I think it's a great point. What Apple did yesterday, they just have a bigger reach, is genuinely not different than what Phonak did a couple of weeks ago, right? They're promoting a huge widget. Phonak probably spent over $10 million. Apple will spend $100 million just because they have a much deeper pocket. But at the end of the day, the Phonak release of their new widget, the release of Apple's new widget, it's still widget talk. And at the end of the day, widget talk, which is pretty much what we've done for the last 50 years in hearing healthcare, has got us to this abysmal point where we only treat 9.6% of the population. 73 million Americans, 1.5 billion people worldwide with hearing loss, and we help 9.6%. What that means is at the end of the day, nobody gives a crap about widget features, right? It's not about that. The thing that differentiates us from the widget, I'm talking the Phonak widget, the Oticon widget, I'm talking the Apple widget, the Whisper widget, the Bose widget. What separates us are the 5 medical benefits of treating hearing loss and tinnitus, which include increase in emotional and social health, right? We know that treating hearing loss increases quality of life. We know that it increases independence in older adults. We know that treating hearing loss can reduce the risk of a traumatic fall, right? Which, a traumatic fall can kill you, let alone make your older adult end up in their child's basement. They lose their independence. It can just be terrible. Treating hearing loss properly can do that, not a widget, right? We know that properly treating hearing loss can improve cognitive performance. It can increase mental acuity by increasing processing speed, memory recall, executive decision-making ability, selective attention, right? These are the types of things that we basically have to glue ourselves to. Forget the widget, forget the features. We have to glue ourselves to the medical outcomes because that's what we provide. We also have the ability to reduce tinnitus. In 90% of patients that come to us complaining about tinnitus, with properly fit prescription hearing technology, we can reduce their experience of tinnitus. And last but not least, for 7 years running now, with the newest report from the Lancet, it is still the case that treating hearing loss is considered the #1 modifiable factor for preventing cognitive decline and dementia.
So Keith, for everybody on this call, I just want to make sure that they get takeaways, right? So you shared the data behind Apple that they've released, right? And as a private company, they might not release more than that. They might not create fake Apple hearing studies that they share like manufacturers do today with their own data and their own scientists. They might not talk the same way, but to your point, they will flood in marketing. They will flood in a public awareness campaign. They will drive more people to seek a qualified professional. And that's why you must be the trusted authority in your marketplace. Now, I can share with you, since I've met Keith, since I've followed the science, since my team has been trained, what we've done in private practice. I showed that graph a minute ago. But how do people here today that wrote down those 5 medical benefits, and they promised today to start talking about science and objective medical outcomes, not features and benefits, that there's going to be a race to the bottom, right? You're going to start selling hearing aids for $200 to compete with Apple, or you're going to elevate this profession. You're going to ascend with us at Audiology Ascending, and you're going to change the future and protect private practice and propel it forward into a new generation where 50 million new baby boomers will need your help and healthcare. Keith, you have those 5 medical benefits coming up in 3 different events. So can you just walk me through these 3 QR codes on the screen? Tell me about dementia certification. Jeanette started you off, gave you a great endorsement in the chat. Can you start with what is coming up and what does this mean for everybody on this call and their staff and their team?
Yeah, well, just an FYI, Jared, I don't see your screen. I don't think it's shared at the current moment. But to your point,
missed out on some great slides then. Can you see it now?
No.
You might have to give me back control or something.
Never. There you go. That should work.
There you go.
Well, somebody else sees it. All right, everybody else sees it. Screw it. Anyway, I don't know what's on the screen, but here's what I can tell you, right? To further differentiate, because that's what this is about, is further differentiating you from these widgets. And how do you do that? And look, I'm not trying to knock anybody, but you don't differentiate yourself by going to a widget release, by going and partying in Vegas for a few days to learn about the new widget that Phonak put out, or Oticon or Widex. I don't want to pick on anybody. It's all of them. And I never blame the widget people because their job is to sell more of those hearing aids, right? For us, this is about building a community that is trying to differentiate themselves and truly provide transformative medical treatment to provide those 5 medical benefits I just listed. And so one of the ways is to become a certified dementia practitioner. In about 10 days from now, we are going to run the certified dementia practitioner course, and we are going to certify our 1,000th hearing healthcare provider. I don't know who on the call will be that lucky person, but basically, and there's going to be a huge gift for that person, but we are going to cross the line of 1,000 people, right? That's 1,000 people who now truly understand how hearing and cognition come together, where they meet at that crossroads, and the role of the hearing healthcare provider in screening, in prevention, in education on all things cognitive decline and dementia. So that differentiates you, right? We're talking about best practices for practice growth. I assume there's a QR code up on the screen somewhere about our event, our Growth and Private Practice Freedom Summit, wherein this is all about promoting. How do you market? How do you speak to your community about the medical treatment of hearing loss and tinnitus? How do you become the go-to for every geriatric specialist, physician in the area? How do you get patients to recognize that you are the trusted authority for all things hearing loss and tinnitus? So that's going to be a great event. And then in November, right? So we have the certified dementia practitioner course. Well, we have a tinnitus specialist certification that we've run also now for a few years. We did it at Harvard, at Harvard University last year in Boston. This one is going to be out in St. George, Utah. You can attend virtually if travel's too much for you, but this is going to be all about how do you integrate the medical treatment of tinnitus into your practice? What does the research tells us? What do you need to know about linear, about TRT, about the effectiveness of prescription hearing technology? And then we're going to have a hands-on portion where it's how do you actually get a patient from, searching the internet to learn about remedies for tinnitus to actually coming in and investing in your practice and getting them to say yes to the number one proven method for reducing tinnitus, which is prescription hearing technology from a licensed and certified hearing specialist.
Keith, I absolutely appreciate that. And the reason it's important to me for everybody on this call is the practices, the professionals, and the patients that are receiving the most benefit in our community are the ones attending the events and changing their mindset, changing their culture, changing their marketing, and changing their knowledge of the science. And that's what we provide every single day at Aud Experts. Now, tactically, boots on the ground, I saw another chat a minute ago. What am I doing at the Hearing and Brain Centers? What is my team of 40 plus people doing every single day starting yesterday is things like role-playing and practicing how to talk about Apple on the phone, right? You've probably already got somebody that said, hey, I got this notification on my iPhone that says they're coming out with something. And all they want is their trusted authority, you, your practice, your staff, your audiologist to be able to answer that question. And so we have a monthly role play call with Reese where your phones team, your team can practice for free as a member with our team as a community to strengthen your words, strengthen your answers. And so that's one tactical thing that's already started at the Hearing and Brain Centers is now we're learning how to answer those questions without breaking trust, learning how to answer those questions as the trusted authority. Keith, I know you'll have another free webinar. I know you'll have some paid webinars. I know you have these paid events coming up. But what does it mean for you to prepare hearing healthcare providers from phones to front desk to finance to have this conversation?
And to have the conversation and to embrace the conversation, right? I mean, I just trained a group in Wisconsin yesterday. That's why I got in so late last night. And we were talking all about whether it be comparing our treatment program and the costs associated with it and what our medical treatment looks like compared to third party, compared to Costco. Now we're just adding to the list, compared to Apple, right? And I already went through some of the widget comparisons that for me are just night and day, how our widgets are better than theirs. Not that I ever wanted to become a widget war, but ultimately it's about the service and the value that we provide.
I know we also, I love it. I love it. But you need to practice. You need to start giving your team during your weekly practice sessions, during your daily huddles, during your monthly groups talks is now you need to start preparing your team to answer those questions. And look, it's going to be uncomfortable at first. That's why we have that call with Reese. That's why we have these webinars. That's why we have training days coming up. We actually have practices coming in tomorrow for how do you talk about old hearing aids versus new hearing aids, right? And let me just and there's this other thing, right? So you just made a great point, right? You're the marketer. And so if you're at Apple, what would Jared do? Jared would figure out everybody who's got an iPhone that's over the age of 45 and would shoot them an announcement. Hey, you need a hearing test. You're over 50, right? American Medical Association says you're over 50, do a quick hearing test, right? But that's one of those things where we know the audiogram does very little to help anybody. A hearing test has never helped anybody, right? We're focused on treatment, not testing. We're focused on treatment, not widgets. And I would ask you to look inside and say, well, when a patient comes to me, am I going to do the same audiogram that Apple did? Or am I going to be different? Go ahead. You have a great webinar on that, training.audexperts.com. It's in the free samples. You can watch Keith's webinar on the difference between an audiogram and the stages of the hearing loss and our outcome form and what we do in our practice. And if you're there in Vegas, you're going to see 4, 5, 6 hours specifically dedicated to building your value proposition, helping more patients understand the difference between the medical treatment of hearing loss for a major medical condition and a widget. And I think those events and those trainings are where you have to be and why you have to be a part of the community. Another thing, Keith, on top of what you just started getting into that we're doing here at the Hearing and Brain Centers is our marketing, right? I think I saw Kim Garrett's name on here, but she's been doing some ads that she shared with our community about OTC hearing aids and getting people to opt into a free report about those and then transitioning those into full private pay transformational hearing healthcare patients in our practice. Right. So that's a marketing thing we're going to talk about in October at Audiology Ascending. It's something we talk about every week, every month, every day in our practices is now, how do I take the patient journey? How do I take the patient that got the Apple notice that said, we're coming out with hearing tests and hearing aids, because they're not going to know how to do it themselves. I promise you, if you have patients in your practice that can't connect their Bluetooth, that can't change their own dome, that can't clean their own filter, this is going to be tough for them. And they're going to reach out to the local trusted authority, the #1 ranked Google reviews in their market, the #1 SEO in their market, the #1 website, the person in their market that is the trusted authority. And we teach you exactly how to become that person. And now we have to teach your team how to answer the questions, or they're going to start turning away more and more patients because they don't understand how to answer the question.
And I think I'm thinking about the white paper that we just created, right? So think about, because I know some people, we talked about, marketing, how do we really differentiate ourselves in marketing? Apple's about to push and tell everybody to do their iPhone hearing test. Well, guess what? We just produced a white paper. What was that, 2 weeks ago, Jared, that says you don't need a hearing test, right? Almost just to sort of completely talk differently about a hearing test ain't going to help anybody, especially not an audiogram. Are you getting a cognitive screening? Are you looking at the impact of hearing loss on clarity, the impact of hearing loss on cognitive function? And are you medically treating your hearing loss? Because that's what it's about. It's not about a hearing test. It's not about X's and O's. I mean, let's leave that to the football coaches now that fall is here. Like, you have to speak differently. I'm thinking we should rework that white paper and put a giant picture of AirPods on the cover and say you don't need a hearing test, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so we're going to dive into, we can't do it on a 40-minute webinar.
I know.
But we're going to dive into the marketing patient journey, because this patient that gets an update from Apple, who they trust, who they have an affinity for, who has a huge net promoter score, they got a notice. What they got was interrupted. What Apple just did was interrupted every single person that has an iPhone. They just did a master class in marketing on how, if you get your product in a patient's hand, if you get your app, this is why I absolutely love the Preventing Decline app that we're launching in October, is once my patient has the Preventing Decline app on their phone, Keith, I can do what Apple just did. I can interrupt their night, their baseball game. I can interrupt their sleep. I can interrupt anything I want to put my message forward. And they did it to sell more AirPods to old people. That's why they did it. I promise you, there was no other grandiose plan than to increase AirPod sales, because they declined last year for the first time ever, right? So they're looking for new market share. That's why the Preventing Decline app we're going to share with everybody, especially for our community, is fantastic, is you understand the marketing thing to interrupt people and then engage them. And this engagement includes helping more people have a conversation about a major medical condition that is lowly treated, and we can be the person that leads that charge. I already have an SEO page on my website for Apple. Yesterday, I told the team, here's the content I need, put it out there. Guess who's going to rank when you search for Apple hearing aids in my markets?
Exactly right. This is the type of marketing geniusness that you need in order to be successful, in order to look. I started the webinar saying all ships will rise, but let's be honest, some are going to rise more. And the fact that we have all these marketing tactics, these things that are happening behind the scenes, I think is just, it's huge. And it really is what's going to differentiate us and allow us to ride the wave. Look, the more people talk about tinnitus, the more people talk about hearing loss, you just have to be right there with it. And you have to know what your value proposition is, what your points of differentiation are. And not just you, not the owner, it's got to be everybody on the team. And I think that's one of the things that we specialize in this community, is that we believe treatment's a team sport, that everybody from phones to finance needs to understand the medical differences, medical benefits, the points of differentiation. And I think there's no better way to do it than to continue to engage and be part of this community and come to our events.
Absolutely love it. There's 3 options up there, Keith. I know we're running out of time. We actually have our Wernicke Wednesday group call next. Reese wasn't able to be here to role play, but he does have that free role play. Anybody here, roleplaywithreese.com. What I want to do, Keith, is just once again to pull full circle. You shared the science that is available from Apple. You shared how it's different from the medical treatment of hearing loss. You shared how you can continue to grow you and your team's science and knowledge to use that in private practice. I also want to help right now, just give them one quick transition. And if I ask Dr. Darrow, right, put your Dr. Darrow hat on, hey, I heard about Apple. Is that something I should consider? And now I want Keith to respond with the trusted authority way of talking about the medical treatment of hearing loss.
Well, yeah, I love that you're thinking about Apple and the new hearing aids. I guess I would want to understand from you, Mr. Smith, why is this something that you're even interested in? Tell me about some of the things you're experiencing in background noise, or you're dealing with tinnitus, right? I'm going to take that to dive deep into their why. I don't want to, like I said, you can't engage the widget conversation. This is a medical condition. We are medically treating these conditions. The widget is not important. You have to emphasize to the patient right up front that it's a minimal part of what we do. Right? The general public thinks we sell hearing aids. We have to change that perception to, no, we treat your hearing loss. So I want to know the symptoms. I want to ask even deeper questions on what else do you know about the medical treatment of hearing loss? I want to review treatment options, be it do nothing. I want to talk about the over-the-counter, the Apple widgets. I want to talk about how they're different from treating, medically treating hearing loss. And then I want to talk about, our treatment length, what our treatment program looks like in short-term and midterm and long-term goals. I want to talk about cost. These are all the things that I want to get out of the way before a patient even ever gets in my booth, right? Because I want to be on the same page as my patient and make sure they understand what we do, which is medically treat hearing loss, not just present a bunch of beeps and sell a hearing aid.
And it reminds me, Keith, of 10X Hearing Care that you just shot with Dr. Cliff. There's some ideas on best practices. You have some best practices. They're all on training.audexperts, but you're going to dive a mile deep on this. You're going to show real film from my patients. You're going to be able to show our treatment pathways journey, like everything we've built over the last 14 years to help prepare for this day. Now, when we started, Keith, you and I joked about Walgreens taking over and CVS Minute Clinics taking over and Bose. Right. So we've been building the tools and assets you need to prepare for this for 14 years. They've worked in private practice. They've worked to eliminate third party. They've worked to eliminate managed care. They've worked to keep us healthy and growing. And that's what we want to share with you. And that's why you need to be part of the community. Now, as far as Apple goes, I can't stress enough, you will not beat Apple. You can't beat their marketing budget. You can't beat their awareness. You can't beat the fact that they have a direct communication on an app unless you start building those things yourself. What you can do is elevate audiology. What you can do is elevate hearing healthcare. You can elevate your mindset. You can elevate your culture. You can elevate your marketing. You can elevate your science. And we can't do that on a 40-minute webinar. So we need to see you in person. Keith, I have to go. Is there any parting things that you can share with the group?
Hearing healthcare has its brightest days ahead. And the way we're going to do this, the way we are going to prosper and propel into the future is together. And so just be part of this community, be part of the movement, and thank you for continuing to show up.
Yeah. We'll post the recording on training.audexperts.com, also on my YouTube channel. They're both available. There's a lot of great information there. Reach out to Morgan at audexperts.com. He can connect you with Reese, our trainer. He can get you the links to our free role plays. At the end of the day, the more engaged you are, the more elevated audiology will be. And we are here to help, and we're here to see you soon.
Take care.